You just brought up a really important point, the voice of the customer, right? It's the highest authority voice inside of the business. And I've been doing actually a lot of research on this. You look at reports from McKinsey and Bain and Deloitte, and most B2B companies don't have a dedicated voice of the customer strategy, right? But it's so important. Tell us a little bit about, maybe your idea of the importance of the voice of the customer and how it can impact what we're doing and specifically bringing alignment together.
I think this starts by saying what's the metric or what's the measurement as the CRO or anyone in the executive team that you look at the most. So for me, my North Star, for example, is the NRR rate, so the net retention revenue. So in order for me to safeguard that rate, sure, we're going to talk about this potentially a little bit further, and we discussed that it's to be 70% of the revenue growth. The voice of your customer is going to be absolutely critical in order to safeguard that number. For me, it indicates sustainable growth versus just burning cash after acquisition or just spending the funding that you just received, right? This also ties into what we discussed previously between am I focusing on my quarterly goals or my long-term strategy? And all of that is something that the NRR is telling you in one way or another. Am I doing the right thing? Is my customer base growing? Am I listening to the customer? Are my quarterly goals aligned to my long-term strategy? It really is like a North Star that gives you, on a high level, like just a very good overview on the health of your business.
It also helps balance short versus long term, right? There's a lot of chief revenue officers that really only act as a chief sales officer that focus specifically on new logo development, right? But you mentioned it. There was a study that was done by Forrester that said in B2B companies, 73% of new annual revenue should be coming from our existing clients, which means we have to have a dedication on that. We have to have a long-term perspective on how we foster and cultivate that relationship and grow that relationship, right? So NRR, net revenue retention, it should be the North Star, right? It should be. How does that, as the North Star, help create bring together that gap, that chasm between long and short term in your mind?
Good question. I actually heard a couple of questions in there. So I'd say it's like one of the things that you were asking is also maybe potentially around. So if the NR is such an important metric for all the analysts are always focusing around this number, it's why are we not talking about this even more? And not saying we don't. Or why, as a CRO, you sometimes have that natural tendency to focus more on new logo growth than net retention. Even though the NRR rate is my North Star, it doesn't mean that I have like this innate natural tendency as well to gravitate towards new business just because that's how I created, that's how I built my career. Starting like sales is what you know, like it's your comfort zone. So obviously when you're stepping in that position, your comfort zone will always have a natural, it will also attract your attention just from a natural perspective. It's a customer success. And let's say for a lot of us is either something new or something that wasn't always top of mind. So something you always need to make sure that you incorporate in your day-to-day or in your long-term or short-term strategy to make sure that it's actually like a big and important part of the growth of your business. Right? You can't say my NRR is my North Star and then at the same time, your focus is on new business. The other thing I'd say where the challenge lies for a lot of us is in our position is to also understand that metric and to actually have visibility on what's organic growth and what's land and expand. But in different organizations, and it's always something that you be very mindful of is how much was actually responsible for like the market in general growing, which is still very important. But then if you're really honest with yourself, is that, did we do this? Or are we on lockdown for the last 2 years and the entire market changed? So our company changed with it. As I said, we were just riding this wave. Or how much of this is actually proactive, right? So during renewal, did we actually do a land and expand exercise? Did we start with a proof of concepts? Again, do we do a land and expand? Did we actually identify greenfield opportunities to add to the account? Or Do we get a signal that it's, hey, this contract expires after 3 months? We give them a call. Oh, wait, you're doing more revenue now? Awesome. Here's your updated contract. So that's something that you need to continuously be very mindful of on when you're looking at the NRR and the numbers are all green. Is, okay, is it market? Is this us? And if you have like great visibility on this, it immediately is going to give you action points to take.